Today is Thursday, March 26th, and it's 4:05 in the afternoon, and we are here to meet as a Finance Committee. My name is Tom Kendall, Chairman. To my left is Mr. Doug Tremblay, member of the committee, and to my right, Mr. John Swayzer, also a member of the committee. We have 5 items to come before the Finance Committee today, and Mr. Titterton, will you be speaking on those?
Some of them, yes.
Okay.
First item is we are asking that council authorize us to participate in ODOT's salt bidding program. They will be doing a summer and a winter bid. Past years, at least recent past years, we have not participated in that. It has been more beneficial to us to be in a cooperative bidding program. With the recent bids or the last year's bids that we received, the shortage of salt and the unit prices that were quoted, we want to be involved in this program. ODOT sent us notice of the request too late to be on the last month's or last council agenda, and they are requiring an answer on April 3rd. Our regular meeting is April 6th. We don't expect that we'll have enough to even suspend the rules in April 6th, so we have scheduled a special meeting Monday night to consider this item. We do think it's beneficial for us to do that, and we are requesting your authorization as an emergency.
Okay.
City engineer is in the audience if you have any further questions.
Just as, I guess, to look at what we paid this year compared to we would have been in the cooperative before, would we have saved money?
I'm not sure that ODOT, I know ODOT did not do a summer bid last year. They only did a winter bid. I'm not sure. We may have been able to participate in there. I know ODOT did slightly better than the cities did with their salt. But remember, part of it was cost, part of it was availability.
Right.
In our case, we were allocated out of the co-op approximately 800 tons. We used just about every bit of that. We do have a small surplus in the bin, and that's only because we bought some of Kettering's excess tonnage, 200 tons, and so we have that sitting in the bin and just in case.
That's for this weekend, right?
For next season. Next season.
All right. John, do you have any questions?
Do they allocate how much we get, or can we say we want 1,000 tons and we get 1,000 tons?
Well, the way the program works is whatever we want to be included in the bid is what we would have to take. So we ask for 1,000 tons. We're expected to buy 1,000 tons. The only thing would change that is if ODOT asks for 1 million tons overall because of the, everybody who participates, and the salt companies say, sorry, we can only give you 800,000. Then they would reallocate, and which is what they had to do with our co-op this year. So that could happen.
Okay.
All right. Doug?
So we're gonna ask for 800, which is below our average.
We are going to ask for, is that what we said, 800? We have 200 in
So
the bank,
basically,
so to speak.
the results of this one, when they come back, we could then in the fall ask for something from the other group, a swap G4 or something.
Yes, we didn't want to put all our eggs in one basket.
Right.
And not knowing the price that was going to come back from ODOT, although we anticipated it to be better than, hopefully better, although ODOT has said don't anticipate that anything's going to be, any salt prices are going to lower. But we didn't want to put all of our eggs in one basket, so this still gives us money in the budget to go potentially back out to either swap 4G or the ODOT winter bid.
Okay, it gives us an option in the fall then, great.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Anything else? Any other council people, any questions? Anybody in the audience? John?
I would like to move forward with emergency.
John?
I'm good with emergency.
That's unanimous. Let's move forward
Okay.
with emergency.
Second item is asking for authorization to bid the curbside recycling program. Currently, we have we're at the end of our 3-year contract with Rumpke. That was a contract that we bid out in partnership with Piqua. As a result, we received a percentage discount by doing that. Piqua has intimated that they are bringing their recycling program in-house and are not going to be part of a bid, so we would bid on our own. As we look forward in the program, we would like to ultimately use this as a test, but ultimately get to a point where our garbage and our recycling is handled by toters, the roll-off type toters, instead of in the case of recycling, the red bins that we have now. And so we would like to bid that program as a base bid with an alternate. What would it cost us if we stayed with the toters or the bins? Okay. We're asking for an authorization of annual amount of not to exceed $400,000. We anticipate it may be a little more expensive for the recycling program than what we have now, be it inflation, the fact that we won't have Piqua's volume to include as a discount, and with the possibility of going to the toter program, we're not sure where the cost might come out. But we do see it as a long-term benefit. We are asking for not a 3-year program, but rather, would we say a 2-year? 2 years with 2 1-year extensions at mutual agreement. And the reason that we're looking at a 2-year is that at the time we can reevaluate the recycling, then we would also be looking into acquiring new refuse trucks. So we'll have some idea of the direction that we want to go with that program. And we can look at greener trucks, alternative energy trucks, whether those trucks should be semi-automated so that they can handle the toters, those kind of questions. And this program will help us evaluate the whole refuse and recycling program ultimately.
Okay.
Again, Mrs. Rhodes is here in case I missed any of the details.
I had a question. You're going to have several bids of several lengths and several options so that there'll be several prices in that bid.
We will have a couple of different bid requests. The lengths, it's always going to be 2.
2 years.
Yeah. We're not varying the amount of time.
Okay. But then when the bids come in, then we can have a decision as to which one or you would at that point.
Yeah, we would do that based on what the bids come out, and that's why the maximum would be $400,000 authorization. If it went substantially over that, or over that at all, then we'd have to come back to you and look at
Okay.
other
That's all I had.
John?
alternatives.
Yeah, what's a toter?
That would just be the roll-off, the big, what are they, 60
Would they hook 'em
gallon?
up and
Yeah, 60.
And they take them.
They take them up automatic.
The automation with the arm, they can pick it up with the automated arm, and that ultimately would be something that
Jill.
Well, you're not on camera.
we're evaluating in the next 2 years would be automation is the way that trash and recycling is going. Rumpke's there, Waste Management's there, and a lot of their communities, and so we want to obviously stay with the times. And so the 65-gallon toter would be kind of the first step to begin to implement that so that we can get semi-automated trucks and then ultimately go automated potentially. So we still need to evaluate that in the next 2 years if that's the way we want to go with both recycling and refuse.
So the extra 90 4,000 from what we came in at last year, from 306,000, that would be to buy the toters? Or are we staying with our existing?
No, that could include
24
that
gallon.
could include the cost of acquiring them. We probably anticipate that would be folded into the rate that Rumpke charges us, because that way, if there are replacement toters, like we do now, if one of the bins damaged, then you can just get it replaced very quickly and very easily through Rumpke. Also, though, the other factors that may come into play, we expect to come into play is, inflation over the last contract, as well as the fact that we would be losing, I believe it was a 3% discount from co-bidding with Piqua, which we will not be doing this time.
How does this line up with where we are on the pro forma as far as the garbage rates and things
Sure.
like that?
The forecast, we're good with the forecast. We're positive on the forecast, so the $400,000 does not create a deficit for us.
So we wouldn't be going later on to the public and saying,
Don't anticipate that at all.
okay.
Okay. Just curiosity, do we own the red totes, city, or they're leased, rented?
Rental.
Okay.
I guess they're rental, but
So
they never want it back.
when, if we would go to the toters to the 65 gallon, or if somebody other than Rumpke would get the contract, the week prior, when Rumpke went through and did their last collection as part of the existing contract, Rumpke would pick up the toters, would send somebody out to pick up the bins, I guess we'll call them bins, the 19 gallon bins. And then at that same time, the new contractor, if it wasn't Rumpke or if they were potentially going to the larger 65 gallon units, they would potentially then also at that time deliver the larger units. So we do not own either of them. We essentially are renting them.
Do we have to, if they don't pick up the amount of totes that they say are there, do we get charged for them?
It's all been included in the contract for the last 3-year agreement, and in fact, they just delivered us 250 more a couple weeks ago, and so they don't keep track of their 19 gallon
Okay.
bins as closely as they would with their 65 gallon bins.
Okay.
So we want that all to be included in the bid. So we'll make that clear to them. We've talked to them about that. If there was any replacement cost that they, see in their communities, we would want that to be included in the bid as a cost.
All right. All right, thanks, Jim.
Okay.
Any other questions from council members?
Please, after Al.
I appreciate Mrs. Rhodes' comments and Mr. Schwager's questions. I guess my concern is if the county is currently accepting recycling and Piqua was going to this one truck deal, why can't we go to a one truck deal and, or at least wait a year instead of bidding it out for 2 or 3 years, save that money?
Excellent question, Mr. Clark. Thank you. We did evaluate that as an option. We did compare it to what Piqua is planning to do.
Not the way I
Understand, but we'll steal ideas from anybody who's doing it correctly. In this case, though, would be comparing apples to oranges, because Piqua has extra trucks that are not currently in service. We carry a minimal number of extras. We get rid of them. We auction them off as quickly as we can. So we don't have them sitting around. We also, as part of our austerity measures in the last few years, have reduced the number of full-time staff on the back of the trucks. We run 2 of them a day with the garbage. And so instead, we use part-time seasonal types to work the back of the truck, and we have a full-time truck driver that's driving the routes. Piqua, on the other hand, has more full-time staff that they believe are available to pick this up. So their ongoing costs, I guess, they're able to better utilize staff that maybe they're using them in a different way that they don't need to anymore. I don't know. But we don't have those staff. And if we did come in-house, we would have to hire new staff. So when you compare the costs of doing it in-house, at this point, knowing what we know about the county, who is, I don't even know if they're accepting recycling yet, but they have committed to doing that at the transfer station. Based on the numbers that we heard from the county, it makes more sense for us to bid this out. Part of, though, the discussion that we had internally when we looked at doing a 3-year versus some shorter period of time also involved, maybe at the time we want to rebid this 2 years from now, it may make more sense for us to go in-house with recycling, and we would look at that at the same time as we're looking at what kind of vehicles we want for waste truck replacement. We'd look at this as well.
But when we get the bids, it'll be, for example, a 1-year bid, a 2-year bid, and then a 3-year
No,
bid.
it'll be a 2-year bid because we know that'll be the time when we'll be evaluating replacing the trucks, which that's where they are in the pro forma to be replaced. So as we're doing that, then we'll be coming up to the end of the other contract. So it'll be a 2-year bid, and we would have the right, though, to, by mutual agreement with whatever company we're with, if we want to extend it another year, we can do that 2 times. So 2-year base bid, 2 1-year extensions, if it makes sense.
Okay, and because we're using temporary staff to, the back of the garbage trucks, we go to toters, then we'll just eliminate that position, right?
They will continue because we are not going to toters at this time on the
Right.
on the trash side of it.
Yeah.
If we do go to toters 2 years from now, yes, then we wouldn't need as many in that capacity.
Okay, thank you.
Bobby, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How far out have you forecast the rate not being,
I think we're in the 6th year of 10-year. Is that what? 6 or
But-
7
but,
years.
you know,
We had a 10-year forecast.
okay,
And as part of that 10-year, I think we're in the 7th year, 6th or 7th year of that. And with the balances that, we purposely put in there so that we can buy the trucks because they're hundreds of thousands of dollars. We have not updated that pro forma in any significant way and won't until we're at the 9th into the 10th year to see whether or not we need to do anything to adjust the rates at that time. But given what we know now and how the forecast has been going, or the pro forma has been going, we're on track, if not better, and so we don't see any kind of need to do any adjustments.
is there any way for Rumpke or another waste management company to also do our trash pickup in combination with?
We looked at that before we did this 10-year pro forma. They actually had done a bid. They submitted bids as if we were looking at doing that. And given the way that we do work the program, it is more cost effective for us to do it in-house. And that is something that we could look at in that 10th year as we're looking forward.
Okay. I think that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mrs. Baker?
My question has to do with the bins versus the toters. With the bins, people are able, especially on your narrow streets and things where you don't want waste streets and people parked on the street, they're able to be put in the curb line and picked up. With the toters, do they have to be on a hard surface for the truck to come in and automated pick that up?
I think they have to be close to the curb. They don't have to be in the gutter.
Okay.
But, certainly they can't be on the sidewalk. They may be able to be on the sidewalk, but that would be an extension of the arm. But the other programs, there is some reach to the arm.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any from the audience? All right, Doug?
I just would like to move forward with a positive recommendation,
Okay.
and I don't think emergency is.
Emergency
No,
was not
we are not
requested.
requesting emergency.
John?
I'm good. Let's move forward.
Okay, let's go forward. Unanimous.
Next item
Third item.
is a request that that the council authorize us to continue to participate in the Ohio Benefits Cooperative. And the change that we would have there is, instead of being a fully funded program, we would participate as a self-funding entity. I'll let Mrs. Knight explain that in more detail, since she's been involved in all the discussions.
Right. The city has been a member of the Ohio Benefits Cooperative for about 9 years now. For our group health insurance, we also purchase our life insurance benefit through the Ohio Benefits Cooperative. We feel that it's worked well for the city as far as rate management than if we were bidding on our own. There are 13 current members of the OBC, and it's made up of cities, villages, and townships. We started looking last year at a self-insured model. One item about self-insured health insurance, it avoids some taxes that have to be factored into premium percentages based on a fully insured plan. So we do have a savings there. As the Ohio Benefits Cooperative Board has worked our way through self-insurance programs, getting bids, looking at an administrator, we also found that the bylaws of the Ohio Benefits Cooperative have to be slightly amended to reference specifically self-insured programs. So those have been moderated, reviewed by our law director and by our insurance pool, and they're basically just changes that would impact membership's cost and being getting out of the OBC if that were to happen. So we're asking that council authorize the director to sign any documents related to the OBC, the new bylaws, an agreement with Jefferson Health Plan that will be the administrator of the self-insured plan. As far as employees or covered employees, they will not see any difference in having a self-insured plan other than a new insurance card. The benefits will be the same as our current under the upcoming renewal of our health insurance. But we are asking at this time if you would consider the approval of the bylaw changes and of any other papers that have to be signed.
Okay. I've got two questions. First, cost-wise,
I'm sorry?
this has nothing to do with cost-wise at
No,
this
if
point.
anything, it saves us funding money because we aren't exposed to certain taxes that we would be under the
Okay.
fully funded plan.
So this isn't, at this point, it's no cost, it's not going to cost any more for the employee.
Right. There's
No.
no premium attached to any premium changes.
Okay. Second, just a clarification. What is the what was it? The stop-loss insurance against high claims?
Similar to what we might have under property and liability insurance, we self-insure so much of a high claim, and then at a certain point, you attach what's called stop-loss insurance that we would buy direct insurance for, and I don't remember right now whether that's at $150,000 or $200,000, and that's just buying a policy to have another insurance company kick in should there be an extremely high claim, so it doesn't come back to impact our rates as much.
Okay. All right. John?
I have no questions.
Questions?
So it will be a self-insurance at the low end, catastrophic insurance, the high end with an HSA. And we're
Yes.
just giving, okay.
All right.
That's a good way to go.
Any questions from other council members?
Yes. Thank you. On the taxes that you indicated, were those due to ACA
Yes.
costs because of Cadillac plan?
Because just ACA.
It's not related to Cadillac plan.
Okay.
It's just related to certain fees that you have to pay because you're fully funded.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience?
I'd like to move forward with this.
Move forward.
Okay, let's move forward then.
All right, thank you very much.
The next item is a request that council authorize a new interagency agreement with the Ohio Development Services Agency. This is related to the administration of our revolving loan funds. Those all are authorized by and through the state of Ohio, specifically with ODSA. I believe it's every 5 years, 3 years? 3 years, thank you. I'm getting the 3 sign. Every 3 years, we do need to do a new agreement with them. This year, there have been some changes to the agreement on the administration side. It impacts us, it impacts everybody across the state. In general, first of all, Jim Dando is here, Development Director, in case you want to really get into the weeds on this, but across the state, there are communities that have not been as aggressive, as successful in churning these funds like we are. The state, knowing that the federal government has been cutting back on the access to these types of funds, which are typically community development block grant funds, are wanting communities with significant balances to be able to use those balances in more ways before they go and get specific grants for other purposes through CDBG, things like that. And I believe there's also some other administrative duties that Jim and his staff have vetted and we'll be able to handle. But we are recommending that we do, and of course, sign a new agreement with the agency.
Okay.
And again, Mr. Dando's in the audience if you have any specific questions.
All right. John?
We are asking for an emergency.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Are there any costs to the city to have them administer these funds for us? If I worded that correctly?
Jim, you want to talk about that a little bit?
The funds that get repaid on loans that we've given out can be used to cover those administrative costs. So in that sense, there's no cost to the general fund for having this program in place. It can fund its own administrative costs.
So there is a cost to, I mean, the EDRLF funds are essentially our money, as I understand it. They just have to tell us how we can use it?
No, that money was seeded through CDBG money. It was not seeded through general fund income tax or anything like that originally. They gave us that money. We created these loan programs. We started lending money out, and over the years, they've paid us interest back, and that's gone right back in as program income and has built the funds up, and so we just keep.
But that interest goes back into the EDRLF funds.
It does,
Yes.
absolutely.
That's required by the CDB regulations that come out of Washington, D.C. Those funds have to stay in that, and they can't be used for any other purpose, whether it be staff salaries or road repairs, for instance. But the other complication is that they remain federal funds under state control, so the state could recapture those basically at any time. They have never talked about recapturing our funds because our fund is active. As Mr. Titterington said, some of the funds across the state are idle, not actually generating any activity. So those are the ones that they have in the past recaptured for use at the state level.
So is the funds that are in the EDRLF fund, are they Troy's funds? I mean, is there a specific dollar amount that Troy has that we show as a balance?
It is a balance, and they're in our custody, maybe is the way to look at it, because they remain federal funds controlled by the state. But they're in our custody, and as long as we use them correctly and efficiently, maybe is the word, we get to keep those for our use here in Troy, but they remain federal funds.
So this is Ohio Revised Code, and
This is actually Federal Register, but
then why do they need our permission?
for us to continue to administer revolving loan programs, we have to have an agreement with the state to abide by their rules and regulations as the administrators on behalf of the federal government.
When the loans are paid back, do they pay them back to us, or does it go back to the state?
Yes, it goes back into our funds.
Okay.
Yes, and, our accounts, we do have special funds set up, and so all of those are run through our books. They're audited every year. It's just that, like Jim said, we are subject if, for whatever reason, any of the balances that are there that aren't on the street, the federal government and/or the state could come back and say, okay, we need those, so give them back to us. And we're obligated to give them back.
Okay.
I have no further questions.
Okay, anyone else from council, questions?
Yes, I do.
Bobby?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the agreement, and Mr. Schweizer, to answer yours, our agreement is currently expired. Is that correct, Mr. Titterington?
Yes.
So we do need to get back into that. There is an annual audit. Will there be an additional cost through the auditor's office for running an annual audit on these, instead of an aggregate over several years? There's, as we have been doing, time involved and that sort of thing.
I can answer that. We actually report to the state semi-annually on the status of these funds. And also as part of the annual audit by the state auditor through the city auditor's office, these funds are reviewed as well. The difference is that a more expensive audit is needed if it goes over a certain threshold.
With the $750,000?
Correct.
Okay. But this is just more annual reporting to the feds then? Is that what it amounts to?
Through the state, yes.
Right, okay. And the second question I had was the permission or the EDRLF administration agreement. There will be a requirement for prior approval from ODSA for each expenditure from the DVR. Now, is that something that's new?
That's correct, that is new. We have two CDBG-funded loan programs. One is the longstanding Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund that is primarily to businesses for job creation. The other one is the Downtown Building Revitalization Loan Program. And that one has had less requirements such as that prior approval from the ODSA. They are now lumping those into the same category and increasing their oversight on the DVR, which frankly has surprised me all along because they're very similar programs.
But there wouldn't be any time extensions or putting any potential person or business wishing to have a loan that it would extend the time period in the application that might be ungainly or untimely for them or anything like that. We haven't had a problem in the past with the permissions.
That's correct, we have not. What we have always done in the past, and this is over a 25-year period, is that as soon as our loan review committee moves a project forward, we immediately send the information through to the state so that council action and the state's review are occurring more or less at the same time.
Okay. That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the audience? Mr. Schweizer?
Move forward.
I'd like to move forward.
Is this emergency?
As emergency.
It's good as
With
emergency.
emergency.
Move forward then.
Okay. Item number 5.
Number 5.
Number 5, right? Okay. At the, I think it was the last council meeting, council approved or authorized the bidding of the McCaig Road reconstruction project for Phase 2. With that authorization, we noted and the council approved an increase over what we anticipated, because after we had done engineered designs, we found that there's there's stormwater work that needs to be done. Also, we may need to replace a couple of retention walls, or maybe a handful, as well as we have the opportunity to replace the stoplight out there. At the time of your authorization, we reported that we would be following up very shortly with a reappropriation ordinance to make sure that the money is in place prior to the bidding and award as required by the OPWC. In doing that, we also had some other conversations, and as we have progressed through our project list for 2015, some of the priorities and the issues that we told you that we were addressing this year, it's timely for us to come back and ask for reappropriation of some funds to support the ongoing efforts in those projects as well. And so with your indulgence, I'll go through that list in a little more detail. If you want to interrupt me for each one, whatever works best, just holler.
One question before we start, though. We will be addressing these as a total package and not an individual basis, right?
Well, yes and no. What we want to do, recognizing that this is a lot to handle, or to digest, and maybe to move forward really quickly on, and knowing that Monday night is a special meeting.
Right.
The following week is a regular meeting. However, we anticipate that we would not have enough to suspend the rules if you so desire, even if you desired to do that. We would anticipate that we would have the ordinance on the regular agenda for all but 2 of the items, which we would request be on the special meeting, and I can get into those as we go along.
All right.
So there'd be 3 different pieces of legislation at a minimum, 2 of them on Monday, and then the other bigger one a week from then.
Yes.
Knowing that we would not be able to pass that bigger one until the following meeting in April, at the earliest.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Starting with McCaig Road, the reason for the reappropriation there is, again, stormwater, retention walls, stoplights, or stoplight, excuse me, requires us to increase the appropriation in that fund, Fund 442. Another reason that it looks bigger than what you saw is that in the 2015 budget, when we presented the recommended budget to you in November, we had the breakdowns as transfers from other funds into Fund 442. State auditor has come back and said, no, you need to have the appropriations in those particular funds, water and sewer, for example, and not do them as a transfer. So it's an administrative thing, but we have to do that in the reappropriation to correct that, to satisfy the auditor, which we always want to do. Always. The second item is one of the items that we would prefer to have handled on Monday night, and that is related to fire department capital acquisition. In the 2015 budget, it includes $450,000 to replace one of our fire trucks engines. $450,000 will buy us a basic vanilla fire engine, no bells and whistles, just the most basic, and that may or may not even cover that amount. The trend and the need in the fire service is for what's now known as a rescue engine. It's much more heavy-duty. Unfortunately, it comes at a premium price. However, there are significant benefits to doing that, to paying that extra price. The additional cost is $150,000, so it brings that cost to an estimated $600,000. But with a regular engine truck, you have a life expectancy of that truck of 20-plus years. With a rescue engine truck, you've got a life expectancy of 25-plus years. So you're gaining 5 years because they are heavier duty. Everything's is built to last. We have another benefit to this is we have 2 other engines that are scheduled to be looked at for replacement beginning as early as 2017 and 2019. By purchasing a rescue engine, we can consolidate all of the gear and equipment on one vehicle, reduce the amount of responses that are needed by these other engines, and reduce the stress and strain on those other 2 vehicles. And the staff, particularly the assistant chiefs, say that if we buy the rescue engine, we could delay the 2019 purchase to as far as 2022. Of course, responses, conditions, could all change that. And that's why we evaluate all of our equipment every year, and it's not a given that anything is going to be replaced in a particular year. It could vary forward or backwards. I would be remiss if I didn't say also that Acting Chief Simmons is in the audience if you have any specific questions or if I miss anything. Again, right now that we do not have any vehicle where we store and respond in a single vehicle with all of our heavy rescue gear and equipment. We have it scattered across and stored at the 3 stations and on the 3 different engines. So we put it all on the heavy rescue, the rescue engine, and then any heavy rescue type response. I believe you said there were 10 different categories. Probably getting categories wrong, but it's 8 to 10, something like that, where that qualify as or that are classified as heavy rescue events. And again, by doing that, then we reduce the amount of not only the amount of time that the other engines have to chase the vehicle, but also we're in a better position to really attack the event quicker because we're not waiting for this other equipment and gear to get there to a scene. Just for your information, heavy rescue events are things like extrications from vehicles, high elevation rescues, water and ice rescues, industrial type events, confined space rescues, building collapses, those kind of things. I know I missed a couple of them, but those are the major ones. We are asking for an additional $155,000, so $5,000 above the $150,000, because related to the heavy rescue responses in the budget, we included money to replace our primary extraction tool. Since that time, though, the technology has gotten better, and there is a version of the tool that would be much more useful for us. It is something that the fire department's equipment committee, I'm not sure if that's the official name, but that we do have a committee and have had a committee that evaluates all equipment purchases and needs. They have demoed that particular tool. They like it better. It comes at a higher cost, but the other side benefit is that a couple of our neighboring fire departments have that same tool. So if we train on that tool, when we do mutual aid, which is often, then we're much better trained on their equipment as well as they on ours. So that's the fire request.
Okay. Let me stop 1 minute here. Any questions on that while we're on that topic? John?
No.
I have nothing.
Let's go forward.
Okay. The next item, third item, is related to downtown parking. we had indicated to you that we were looking at alternatives and options related to downtown parking. That is an ongoing project. It's involving, where available parking is, where we can possibly acquire more spaces, how those spaces should be marked, either as metered or kiosked or longer-term permits. And that, again, that continues to be an ongoing project. Has some complexity to it. However, we know that if we're going to expand parking in the downtown, that it's going to involve the acquisition of properties, demolition of those properties, as well as repaving them into usable parking spaces. We do have a couple of alternatives in mind that we feel would free up spots, a significant number of spots, to be able to go to the next step, to do appraisals, to do negotiations. We do want to have a reappropriation in the appropriate budget so that we can move forward. Now, that does not say that, and we cannot just, with this reappropriation, go and buy properties. Land acquisition is an exception to the open meetings rule for a reason, and that is because council has to authorize the purchase of property such as this as a separate step. So simply adding the money to the budget does not mean that we would spend it. We will have to come back to you and lay out what we want to do and where, and then you would have a chance to authorize that again. Do not anticipate that this money covers actually building a parking lot or paving a parking lot. It would potentially handle acquisition as well as demolition of any structures that were on those sites. We anticipate that actual development of the lots would be a 2016 capital project.
Let's go forward.
Okay. The city, this kind of relates, I think, Doug, you were asking about HSAs. This is related to our health benefits. It is a separate, but not entirely separate issue from the self versus fully funded. Although under either scheme, we do offer and will continue to offer the HSA as our standard plan, the health savings account. That is the standard plan for employees and families. Approximately 50% of our employees are signed up on the HSA. The other 50% are either opting out of taking our insurance because they have other plans elsewhere, or they continue to pay up to the standard PPO, preferred provider, maybe conventional, traditional plan. An HSA, if you're familiar with them, it's a different concept than a PPO because an HSA requires first dollar in anytime you go to the doctor or you have a prescription. There are certain preventive measures that don't cost anybody, but they're preventive because they want you to maintain and not go as a reaction, but that's true of the HSA or the PPO. But again, an HSA requires first dollar payment by the employees, and a PPO does not. Our PPO has very low, if no, deductibles. They have certain co-pays, but they are very low. The HSA has your more traditional standard type co-pays as well as first dollar in. So employers, whenever they create these, as well as annually when it comes time for a new plan, I hesitate to say always, but in the overwhelming majority of the cases, they always seed the individual's health savings account with an employer contribution. And that's designed to give some insurance in their individual account for any kind of event that happens before they can build up their account during the year, because from the first day of the plan, you are exposed to the maximum deductible, and again, first dollar in, you could be responsible for all of that on the first day of the plan, which would, in our case, would be September 1st. In 2014, Troy contributed, we contributed administratively $1,000 to the family accounts. That equates to 25% of the maximum deductible. We were able to do only 25%, which is pretty low when you look at the averages, because, as you'll recall, in negotiations, when we were able to get some flexibility to begin to look at HSAs, part of the agreement was that in this current plan year, which is September 1 through August 31 of this year, we reduced the employee premium copay that comes out of their paychecks from 12% down to 6% for the first year. And we encouraged the employees to take that 6% that they are not paying back to us to help with the premium, instead put that into their HSA account, or their HSA, which if they did that, and I can't tell you whether they did or not, I can tell you that I did, but that it gets close to 50% coverage over time. Now again, that 50%, you'd only get to, I think it's 47%, if you haven't taken anything out the whole year, and August 31st, every bit of that 6% you saved is just sitting in your account. So if you've had to use that HSA during the year, you're not going to have that 47% sitting in your account. That's why every year employers add something to the individual accounts. This year, starting September 1st, we go back to the regular 12% pullout, and so we need to make sure that the funds have enough money to properly pay the employer contribution to the HSAs who are on it, which is approximately 90 to 95 folks. Make sure I got it. Okay, we did not include, we anticipated that we'd have to come back to you because we knew we'd have to do something different, because that was a 1-year reduction in the premium copay. But because we were still evaluating self versus fully funding, which we knew would impact our rate increase, and we didn't know what the rate increase was going to be. We also didn't know what was going to be offered in terms of the HSA. We were not 100% certain what the benefit, the menu of benefits was going to be. We could not anticipate November and have what we thought would be enough money to cover September and beyond. So that's one reason for the request for reappropriation. That's the primary reason for it. The other reason, though, is that we do not have a comprehensive wellness plan. And if we're going to make, we want employees, as is true, it's a national trend, to move to HSAs and away from PPOs. They promote consumerism. We have already seen, both personally and professionally, that the requirement that shopping around, being more engaged in what kind of medical care and prescription drug care your doctor wants to give you versus what you need, brand name versus generic, for example. And they are, because they have their accounts and because they are responsible for what is paid out of those accounts, they have taken a much more active role in what they're using it for. They can't take it for granted anymore. HSA promotes a healthier lifestyle because they have to be more conscientious in that regard. To promote more, to be in the HSA and to help us control our costs even more, we want to be able to promote healthier lifestyles in our employees. I mean, we have an obligation to do that. We want healthy employees. If we have healthy employees, they cost us less in experience, but they're here at work more than they otherwise might be, and personally, they're just living healthier. And so there are ways that we can do that, and so we want to get into we're looking at a comprehensive wellness program to do that and really play catch up with some of our colleagues in other cities, but here's an opportunity to do that as we move forward.
John, no questions?
No.
Any other council people questions?
I'll wait till the end.
Anyone else in the audience on that?
Okay?
Yep.
The next request is for some funding to do some things related to the ITW Hobart building demolition. That building, of course, is down. It will be reseeded soon. May even be in the process of being done now. The Troy Development Council, as well as the city, in partnership with the city, has an agreement with ITW. ITW has agreed that they will not consider redevelopments unless we recommend them to ITW. We are not their agent. We're not ITW's agent. They are the final negotiator of price, and they make the ultimate decision on who they're going to sell it to and for what price and in what parcels. But for us to be in a position to make rational recommendations to ITW, and given that this is such a unique and tremendous opportunity, TDC is finalizing an RFP, request for proposals, to national consultants to come in and analyze the site, location, the area, the markets, as well as the surrounding uses to that site. And so we want to be a partner in that, no more than 50% of the cost. Also, as we move forward, now that the building is down and we have this opportunity to redevelopment, it can be a showpiece location. It does give us some opportunities, ultimately, either if it's our responsibility or a future developer's responsibility, to upgrade the poles that are out there, maybe bring the electric and the utilities underground, kind of beautify I guess, I don't like using that word, but, modernize the look of that area. And so as a first step, we would definitely, and in addition to just that, we want to be in a position to talk to developers if based on traffic analysis, there's a need for a right-hand turn lane, on Adams or Main Street, or, some kind of a reconfiguration or widening out there of that road. Because if you're driving on Main Street in particular, that is a pinch point. And that traffic does kind of clog a little bit there. Not sure why, and maybe it won't now that the trees are gone and the visibility is different, but we don't know that. And so part of this money would be available to have a basic traffic impact study done and or preliminary design work in anticipation of talking with developers in the future. Does not mean that ultimately that kind of construction work would be the cost of the city. It would just depend on what kind of improvements need to be made and what kind of impact any development would have on that corner.
Okay. All right, let's keep moving.
Okay. The Newt Field Complex, the long-term status of that complex out at Eldine and County Road 25A is in question. We were approached by a community group. I guess it's been probably close to a year ago now, discussing long-term alternatives. The desire is to bring a complex back into Troy. which could have a significant economic development impact, quality of life impact on the community. There have been several alternative sites that have been looked at. I guess I'd be remiss if to say that while that process has been going on, there is a group that has been looking into the possibility of bringing a special needs miracle field to Troy. There are a couple of similar ones in the state. I think the closest one is in Dublin that the mayor toured and visited. And so with the complex wanting to move and the miracle field folks doing their preliminary work, knowing that those are very cohesive objectives and that this complex could support both of those objectives or multiple objectives. We've been looking at different alternative sites in and around Troy. One of the preferred sites is in the area of Duke Park. We've had, and that's still a work in progress, so I don't want to name where that is. There's several locations, but there's one or two that would be preferred. As they move forward, though, looking at those alternatives, we have had our engineering intern kind of put a rough footprint of what a complex might look like to see if they would fit on those parcels. Mr. Phillips, I think we had 8 or 10 fields total. I think it's 10. 10. 2 groups of 4 smaller ones and then two larger. I think that's what we said. And it appears to be able to work on either one of those sites, but the next step would be for the city to do some preliminary work, get engineers in to look at, all right, where would the utility extensions have to be, how would parking be laid out, how would concessions be laid out, and ultimately give us a good engineer's estimate on what that would cost. To do that, we're anticipating the need for $30,000 for some design work to do that.
All right.
Finally, the final
Chairman.
request.
I'm sorry, were we moving on or?
Yeah, we were moving on.
Okay, I just wanted to talk about this.
Okay. Can you wait till we do the
Yeah.
last one? Okay.
Last one is with regards to the road repaving program. You authorized us to bid the general program at $600,000, which was put into the budget. That includes general revenues as well as the earmark for the permissive taxes, the license plate fees. Winter appears to be over. I don't want to be overly optimistic, given the fact that only a couple days ago we had a little bit more that hit us. But we've had another opportunity to tour around town and to look at the status of the roads, and there are some local roads that could use work now versus next year. And so the mayor and I asked the staff, if there were more resources available, are there local roads? Because we wanted to look at the local roads in this respect. Are there local roads that when you went through and evaluated, they were lower priorities than the $600,000 would fund, but you said, gee, if we could, we really ought to attack this section of road. They came back with sections of 10 local roads that are rated as a 1, which is the lowest rating you can get for a road. And they are also roads that are not earmarked for short-term future work by Vectren and the utility companies. Because the last thing we want to do is repave the road and then have somebody come in and put a trench in it. And Vectren has been very good at giving us their schedule so that we don't do that, so we can work better in partnership. So we do have 10 local roads that were identified that, given our current estimate, would cost an additional $320,000 to do, and that's where that number comes from. Now, having said that, resources, how are we going to pay for this? The 2015 budget discussions were held in November. At that time, the city auditor estimated and projected an $18.5 million general fund balance for January 1st, 2015. Now that the books have closed for 2014, the fund balance is now at $21 million. The reasons for that are that in December we had a better December as far as income tax collections were concerned. The entire year of 2014, given the timing of the closing of the books, every month for the first 11 months, we knew that they were just off, and we had shorter months, and the end of the month would happen over a weekend, so it wouldn't show up until the following month. So we had that lag, and it finally caught up to us in December. So we benefited from that. We also benefited from better controlled, lower spending than what Mr. Stickle anticipated in the budget discussions. So that's primarily where that additional funds came from. That is carry forward balance. That is not necessarily a projection of ongoing, that we're always going to be continuing to collect at that high level, given inflation, given other things that happen throughout the year. But it does lend itself to be valuable for one-time capital type purchases, which all of these items in here qualify as. It's not advisable that we use this money for on any ongoing staffing changes or any ongoing operating expenses. So with the reappropriation, if you look at the chart on page 1, as it relates to the general fund, the first two, I guess the third and fourth column, the first two fund columns, general and capital, are what impact that $21 million balance. So that's about $750,000 between the McCaig Road, the engine, et cetera, as well as, I'm sorry, not the McCaig Road, the engine and the parking, wellness, as well as the road repaving, would bring that balance down from $21 million down to $20,250,000, which again is still $1.75 million over what we projected. So the concerns and the anticipation of a possible $200,000 deficit is further erased because we know that we have $1.75 million over what Mr. Stickle had anticipated or estimated conservatively back in 2014. So the summary here is that the funding is available. We're not eating into our fund balance with this recommended reappropriation ordinance. This is money that we may need, but we also may not. So, if we come back to you and we don't acquire, the buildings, or we don't ask you to acquire the buildings, then you won't spend that money, for example. No property, again, would be required without further council action. I want to make that one clear. There is other legislation that may be necessary depending on how you act on this recommendation. The land acquisition, one of the issues with the HSA and our wellness program is that we do have a handful of employees who, because of their age and the fact that they are automatically enrolled in Medicare, they are not allowed to be, or they cannot be in an HSA plan. However, there are alternatives, namely an HRA, which is a different type of plan, but still can provide them some benefit, and still promote the whole wellness and, consumerism approach that we're trying to get across. And then with regard specifically to the road repaving program, you did authorize that at $600,000. So if you're amenable to that, that would be the second one that we would like considered for, if it's positive here, to be considered Monday night. So the fire truck, because there's a 9 to 12 month lead time on it, and the road repaving, because now is the best time to bid that out. If we could do those two items Monday night, you will have another piece of legislation that will ask us to increase that authorization that you've already made on the road repaving. Of course, Mr. Stickle is here, and I'd encourage him to comment on the resource side if he would.
Yeah, year-end, we have targeted reserve balances. We figure out what our budgeted expenses will be for the following year, what our debt repayment, there's a formula we come up with. And with that $21 million balance in the general fund at year end, we have sufficient resources. So kind of a combination of things. We had higher revenues late in the year, less expenses, less refunds on the tax side is a conservative projection. And the timing a little bit too. We have to start making these projections in September and October. So that's a solid number. The numbers, looking 2020 hindsight, that $21 million is a solid number. So we do have a couple $1 million excess than what we were looking at back in November.
Okay. Right. So I guess we've got a couple items here. First, if the committee recommends going forward with the two items on Monday night and the additional items on the following week, and then the two items for Monday night would be two separate pieces of legislation, or would that be?
We could do the reappropriation as one piece, and that would include both of the items, but there would be the second piece of legislation for the road repaving.
Okay.
Okay, so the road repaving budget item would be part of the same one as the fire, but authorizing the bidding would have to be a separate resolution.
However would be the easiest
Right,
for us
absolutely.
to do. So,
Yes,
obviously.
got it.
So John, are you okay with splitting those two out, having them Monday night and then the additional the following week at the regular meeting?
Yeah, so Monday night, we're talking about $475,000 as a reappropriation. And that would be broken out from the 1.14.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm good with
Okay.
that.
Doug?
I am too.
Okay. So we will split that out then. So let's go ahead and address any questions on either one of those two items. So either the rescue engine or the road repaving. Any?
Yeah, the rescue engine, that'll still have to come back for the purchase of the engine.
No, it will not, because that's a state bid item. So it's already been bid out by the state. It's in their state bid program. So as long as we stay under the 600,000 or at or under the 600,000, then we're okay.
Okay. Do we have a list of roads that we want to repair?
Yes, we do.
Do we have that? No.
Can you have that?
Yes.
Oh,
Was that the same list that we've been operating off of? Or are there any changes to the one that was talked about a couple of minutes ago?
Yeah.
well, maybe you can have it. I thought I had it. No, I don't. The 600,000, the list for the 600,000, that's a given. This is additional to that. It does not change that part of it. We are anticipating that we would do a section of South Cherry Street between Drury and Race. Also, 2 sections of Drury between South Market and Plum and Ridge. Now, those 3, we have question marks because we are recontacting Vectren to make sure they're not coming back in. Drury has been cut up quite a bit before we finally replace the water line, so we definitely want to get that done, but of course we don't want to do it and then have it cut up again. In the Southview area, there are a couple of there's a section of Ross Street as well as one on Vincent, and then the Stony Ridge area, sections of Indiana, Michigan, Miami, and Brown Streets. As a backup, one of the areas that we had looked at was the final section of Adams Street between Staunton Road and the railroad bridge. To finish that, the drivability, I guess, is a factor that they use in traffic engineering world. But we'd like to concentrate on, and that's okay. It's a 2, it's not a 1, so it's okay. But that could be our backup if Drury and Cherry don't make sense to do because of Vectren work. And that's the 10 roads, sections of the 10 roads that we're talking about. I can give you a copy of the schedule. It's just pretty colors.
Anything else, Sean?
No, I'm good.
Doug?
No, these 2 items appear
These 2 items, right?
Yeah, these 2 items appear money well spent, save money down the road, repaving especially, and also the rescue engine. So I have no further questions on it.
Okay. Any comments on these 2 items from council?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I might, actually, since we've moved on sort of rapidly through the downtown parking,
Oh, we're going to get to that. We're talking these 2 items right now.
okay, the
Fire truck and the
Repaving.
road repaving.
Yep.
Okay.
No, meaning you're good with it?
No
No
questions.
questions.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Anybody else from the audience? Any questions on that?
I did have a question.
Oh,
Just a very topical question to the chief. How many times would this additional vehicle, how many times would it have been used with all of the equipment that is at the separate stations in the past year and anticipation on an annual basis?
I can get you that information statistically, but it's a truck that we roll out with our main contingents, and that's the fire truck that's fully staffed 24 hours a day. With some of the realignment of the engines, we're operating with the smallest engine that we have right now, so there's not enough room for the equipment in there. And that's our newest engine that would go back to Station 2 and be the last one to be replaced. So it was spec for old Station 2, so it's a lot shorter to fit in there, so it's putting us in a bind downtown with all the equipment that we have to carry. So now we're essentially running out with a couple different trucks to different rescue operations.
Well, but my question was, this vehicle that we're looking at, or hopefully going to purchase for you, this is a workhorse, is what I'm getting at.
Yes.
Yeah, that is going to be
It'll
used
the
on a
main
daily
fire truck
basis.
If the fire truck's going out, if we're called to any operation, that'll be the first truck out.
That was my
Okay.
main answer. Thanks.
thanks. Okay, any other? Okay, so on these 2 items,
Let's move forward. Are either of these emergency?
A reappropriation is not an emergency. It goes into effect immediately.
I'd like to move forward on these 2 items Monday.
let's move forward on those 2 for Monday's meeting. The next package then will be for the following week, and that'll be McKeag Road downtown package, the HSA Wellness, Adams and West Main Street, and the ball field complex. So, Mr. Clark, you've got.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that. Regarding the downtown parking, I know, I've lived here 40-plus years, and this comes up on a regular basis. So I'm just sort of curious if we think this is going to give us different answers than the hundreds of thousands of dollars we've already spent on downtown parking. As this happens, rear its head every couple of years, and I want to make sure we're going to get some different answers. And And I appreciate your comments in there about, this doesn't mean that we're going to authorize buying any properties.
Right. I can appreciate your perception that we've spent hundreds of thousands. I'm not sure that it's been quite that much. If we've spent a lot of
How much
money,
has it been?
I probably don't want to know, to be honest. But my point there is that we've spent it on, much of it anyway, on outside consultants telling us what we should be doing. That's not what this money would be for. This is trying to come up with practical solutions, knowing that the long-term capital and operating costs of a multi-tiered enclosed structure would on its face be cost prohibitive, knowing though also that we do have a hidden demand that's just, I won't say hidden, but it's less apparent, and that is the positive issue, the growing issue that we have with second and third story residences downtown. I mean, it's a good issue to have. It speaks volumes to the vibrancy of our downtown, and we do know that there's demand for a lot more of that. Addressing their parking issues on perhaps a longer-term permitted type basis, which is something we don't do now, is something that we need to address. And that offers us, if we're dealing with the residential population downtown, that may offer us some different ideas on consolidating a lot, reserving a particular lot of sufficient size to be able to do that. And by exploring a couple of these properties that may be available, and then the cost to redevelop them, that may be a more practical solution than spending more money on consultants to tell us pretty much what we already know.
I appreciate that, and I concur. The second issue I had is regarding Main and Elm. I know when we have houses built in subdivisions that the contractor comes in and does the infrastructure work. I don't see why we would go ahead and step up and start putting in infrastructure, buying infrastructure, or thinking about doing infrastructure work for something we don't own, and we don't know what the future of that might be. Unless we do know.
We don't know yet. And if I can clarify, I apologize, I may have not mentioned this earlier, but what this particular money would do is, first of all, figure out, okay, what's the best reuse of that property? Because this is a unique, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So we want to get it right the first time. And ITW is a very willing partner in allowing us to have a lot of say in what we'd like to see. The second part of that is not for us to be acquiring, doing any kind of construction type work, even in anticipation of construction, but rather to understand ourselves what the impact of potential redevelopment would have, and be in a position so that when a developer comes in, somebody buys the property and says, we want to put this here, we can be in a position to say, okay, well, we did a traffic impact study, and these are the kind of improvements that you need to make if you're going to put that kind of intense use at that corner. So it is not committing us to buying any land, buying any new street lights, although, that arguably could be our expense, but that remains to be seen as to, what kind of plan comes back. We're not committing to any of that. We're just trying to get a better idea of what the issues particularly related to traffic are, and because if a particular development has an impact, and it's an impact that is because of that development, that is a cost that is the responsibility of the developer. This gives us the ability to say with an expert's opinion, this is what the impact's going to be, and this is what you've got to do to address as part of the developer's redevelopment.
Okay. And my final question or concern would be the ball field complex. We don't own the land that we're allegedly looking at out there, so we have to purchase land. And we have lots of other ball fields around town, and God bless the Mercer Group, just renovated Trossel Park. We have Hook Field, Hook Ball Field, Haywood Ball Field, there's, Cookson Ball Field, lots of them out there, and I'm sure we're not filling them all the time, all hours of the day to justify purchasing another piece of property to put up a ball field that we need to maintain.
Actually, you probably would be surprised in talking to the Recreation Department at the scheduling difficulties they have on some of those scattered lots that you're talking about. I mean, the primary activity still occurs at the Knoop complex, and that is where the greatest activity is generated and would be generated, and the greatest additional potential would be with weekly tournaments that are not being done now because of the inadequacy of those fields, and would be able to be done. And that's something that you can't do when you're going from field to field to field that are scattered all over town. Secondly, this does not have any presumption of acquisition, construction costs, responsibilities, funding sources, any of that. That remains to be done and vetted. But this is a first step to understanding what the infrastructure costs would be, which we have no way of doing in-house.
Okay. Thanks, I appreciate it.
John?
Yeah, and again, back to the ball fields. This is just for an initial study, a rough estimate study. Why not go ahead and go through and figure out what we really need there, rather than do a study now and then come back and have to do another engineering study later on down the road?
We would not be putting the cart before the horse. So this, if somebody doesn't have that particular site or a particular site locked down, we're not going to do a design or a study of several different sites. Okay, that's just spending, throwing good money after bad. But we want to be in a position to do that. If something is worked out where a particular site makes the most sense, is reasonable, is able to be acquired or swapped or whatever happens, and we want to be in a position to say, okay, great, now here's this land that everybody wants to be used for the complex. How much to get it ready? And we would do as much as we possibly could towards that goal, and as much as $30,000 would do for us, which we think would be, if not 100%, pretty close to it. But we would not be doing this specific. We would not be doing this as a speculative exercise. We would have to, know that this is the preferred site, and then we would do our analysis based on that.
So there's 3 or 4 sites. Would this just be one to fit all, or just for one specific site?
No, this would be these. If there are 3 or 4 sites, maybe 2 or 3 sites, these are alternative sites. It would not be that we would have a complex over 3 or 4 different sites. Does one work better than the other to hold the whole complex? So once a preferred single site is identified, that we would not get involved at the next step until that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I have nothing further.
Okay. Any other questions from council?
Just one or two. As to the Adams and Main Street intersection, is any of that cost with the permissive tax able to be used in that area?
We are using, the permissive tax money goes into the general fund, or I guess to Form 441, capital fund, and it's used specifically for the road repaving program.
Okay.
So in this year's program, we are actually repaving that section between Water and Main of Adams Street. So
Okay.
yes, it does get used for that.
Um,
But I would not recommend using that if the developer's impact is what's causing a road expansion or, then it should be their responsibility.
And, Mr. Stickle, if you know, with any changes in the state's laws and potential fiscal impacts to our city that we have been looking at, what's your projection down the road of how that's going to impact our general fund?
Well, we've already experienced the cut in the local government fund. The estate tax has gone away, personal property, and we've withstood those. Economic development is so important, and that's what's really helped us so far. House Bill 5 is the big thing right now. We're going to have to allow net operating losses. But over the last, I've gone back to the last 7 years, we've consistently increased our reserves. So, not to say, the crystal ball sometimes gets fuzzy, but based on what's been happening the last 7 years or so, I do not anticipate us having any issues keeping our reserves at comfortable levels.
Well, the House Bill 5 is the one that concerns me. And so with future projections, not over the last 7 years, but future projections looking on that, particularly with the net operating losses, what is your thought on that?
It's going to be a headwind, but with economic development, we should be able to maintain our reserves or even add to them a little bit.
And Mr. Chair, if I could follow on that, Mr. Phillips, if you'll recall in the discussions in November, we did have a 5-year pro forma.
Right.
And that pro forma assumed two things. Number one, it assumed an 18.5 million carry forward, so we can increase that. But it also did have the impact of HB5 built right into it for the next 5 years.
Well, I just wanted that included in this discussion for the folks that may be viewing this. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments, questions? John?
Let's move forward. I'd like to move forward with it.
Okay. Move forward on these items then for the following Monday. So,
Yeah, the 5.
anything else come before finance?
That's not enough?
Plenty.
No, sir.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.